Today, our ducks have reached an age where they're ready to eat. Ruined ducks are basically a meat duck anyway. They lay a few eggs a day, but not really worth their food intake to production ratio. So when we got these ducks, we had the plan of butchering most of them. We're going to get it down to the one drake right here in the front and 3 or 4 hens. We haven't decided yet, and so all the other ducks have gone. We've processed 3 drakes and 1 hen so far, and we thought we'd bring you guys along on the video from start to finish on how we process our farmstead ducks.
Push this in. I'm holding that fine.
Yeah, bring that.
Oh, okay.
Just let the duck bleed out into a bucket so that it doesn't make such a mess, and we'll keep her upside down while she's moving so that all the blood comes out the next supper that we made it. Doing it this way, they don't feel a thing, and they're pretty relaxed, and as relaxed as they can be, and it's just a really quick, painless death for them. And they bleed out really well, which is important to bleed them out so that you don't have a lot of blood retention in the meat that you're going to eventually harvest. So that's what we're doing, just wait for it to bleed out. Alright, so now we're going to do what I'm going to call a rough pluck on this bird. We're going to get rid of the wings and a lot of these exterior feathers. Down below is a down coat that ducks have that's basically their insulation. So the outer feathers are their waterproofing, and then these inner feathers, these real fluffy ones down here, are their is the down, and that's what insulates them. So we're gonna just kind of get rid of the wings, a lot of the exterior waterproofing feathers, and we'll work our, once we're to that point, then we can dip the duck in our paraffin wax water mixture and then cool it off in this jar, and we'll show you guys the process when it gets to that point. So for now, we're just going to remove the wings. Just at the first joint, you can feel where the wing bends right there. There's like a webbing here. Just going to cut through that. Make it to that joint, and it'll break easily. And then use the knife to finish getting through that joint. So the wings are gone now, and we're just going to pluck these exterior feathers. It's not a intense plucking job. It's just kind of getting rid of most of the outside feathers, where that wax can really penetrate that down and those pin feathers, which is what you do not want in your meat. Mostly just because it looks bad, but I guess it could provide a pin feather texture too, which some people might not like. So it's not necessarily incredibly necessary as far as food quality to get rid of the pin feathers, but we just want a nice pretty duck, and I think that the dipping them in wax, it's easy enough to do for the gain of not having pin feathers everywhere in your food. So now we have our rough plucked duck, which is kind of why I call it the rough plucked duck. If you look at it, it is rough looking at the moment, but we are going to make it pretty right now. Decided to skin this particular duck because out of all the ducks she had just an insane amount of pin feathers. I'm not gonna say we couldn't have gotten them all with another dunk, but we'll just do something different with this one, and hopefully, you know, the others, what, 3 so far have been peeled nicely, but this one just has
way
insane amounts of pin feathers. So rather, we could just make a soup or a stew or something out of this one, or fry it or something, you know, without
skin. She'd be good with tacos.
Yeah, she'd be a good duck taco. I mean, we're just not going to get that added flavor and like moisture retention of having skin, so which is fine. We'll just adapt according to the bird. Feet. We're going to hopefully ultimately wind up with a nice duck leg, skinless duck leg, and skinless duck breast. Might actually be better for educational purposes to see the removal of these muscle groups without the skin on, actually. So here we have a skinless duck breast, and I'm going to remove it by starting out by the breastbone, and then right in here there's a wishbone, so I'll cut down till I hit that wishbone and then follow the wishbone, but staying as deep as I can to the inside basically skeleton of the bird. So right here I'm going down the breastbone. And we're going to reach the end of the basically the breast structure. Here's the edge of it here. This is the main breastbone coming down here, and it makes a T practically. And so down here there's a thin layer of bone, I guess you could call it, that's the meat's attached to. So I'm just slowly filleting it off of the skeleton here. And that's where that skeleton ends here. So that was all packed with duck breast meat right in there. Hit the wishbone, just kind of come down from there. Taking as much meat as possible. And that's a skinless duck breast. And if you want to get technical, that's the, well, what are they called? The chicken tender, but that's a duck tender. This particular little piece right here. Not real big, but that would be the duck tender. Skinless duck tenders. And that's just the duck breast. Skinless duck breast. Just do the same to the other side. Skin it, and then remove the meat from the skeleton. Now we're going to have skinless duck legs. So that just involves, I'm not completely done skinning away from this leg muscle group here, but that's basically what I'm trying to do, is remove the skin without removing, cutting into the meat or damaging anything that we want to consume. Little ball joint here where the leg connects to the body, and so that's what I'll ultimately be cutting out. That's the spot that I'll remove, and the leg will be detached from the rest of the body. There's just muscle connecting everything back here, so I can even skin this back a little bit more. Basically follow the spine of the duck and remove any of the meat that can come off with that. Bone, there's bone in, but skinless duck leg.
I see a bird. I see a bird.
Ready to cook.
I see a bird yet. I see.
Time to remove what I think is commonly called the giblets, but basically amongst the rest of the entrails there is some usable parts. I don't know about duck liver, duck lungs, all that sort of stuff. I don't know how tasty those are, but this is the gizzard. It's right up front. As soon as you open up the duck, it's a big, hard, basically bluish red thing that's right in the front, and On a duck, it's a little bit bigger than a golf ball, and it's used by the birds to process their food. They eat rocks and other objects, and their food passes through this in order to be digested. Instead of having stomach acid, this is what a duck has, and believe it or not, the meat around it is very edible. It's a little tough. The texture is kind of tougher, but it's good in like a gravy, or you could even stuff the duck with it. That's just a bunch of the rock mixed with food. That is how it digested the food there. And you can sit here and take a lot of time to remove this rough layer, this yellow layer right here. But I find with ducks and other large birds like turkeys, it's easier to just come in here and cut the obvious big pieces of meat off, because that liner right there is like boot leather, so it's not easily consumed. So we'll just cut big chunks of meat off. Just leaving that rubbery liner on there, and that can be slow fried or cooked in a stew or something to help tenderize it. It's a very tough meat, but it is edible, and we want to utilize everything we can off of these birds. Just a little bit of meat there, but that rubbery layer is gone now, and you get a pretty good nugget of meat off the gizzard. Just remove the rest of the entrails, basically go into the very end, right up in here somewhere, but on the inside of the bird you're going to come up with its heart, and that is probably the only other what I would consider edible part of a duck entrail. So the rest of this can either go to the dog or into the junk.
Definitely going to the dog.
Going to the dog. All right. Let's pull some of this nasty stuff off.